From a demon at the circus, to a demon living in a man's first apartment, to a night with a Ouija board gone wrong. On today's top 10 list, I'll be talking about some scary close encounters with demons. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have a Mexico circus demon. This demon story takes place in Mexico in 1942 and is a son recounting his father's story from when he was 20 years old. The father and his younger brother went to check out the circus that had just arrived in town. They were most excited to see the freak shows, but after checking them out for a while, there wasn't really anything that was piquing their interest. They met a couple girls and they were about to go check out some music when a man wearing a dinner jacket came up and started talking to them. He said he was the greatest illusionist in the world and that he could show them a trick both scary and amazing. He also said that he wasn't actually part of the circus and that he had auditioned, but they said his act was so frightening they couldn't allow him in the circus. The father and his brother were both very intrigued now and asked to see the trick, and the man said he could only show them if they came to his trailer, which wasn't too far away. In 2021, we know that you never go to a stranger's trailer, but they all followed the man in this story. Once at the trailer, the man begins his trick. He holds up his right hand and then puts a white glove on it. He then waves his left hand around his right, wiggling his right fingers and chanting some words that the guys didn't understand. He then asks if they're ready. The guys reply yes, and the man pulls the white glove off of his hand, revealing his hand as only a skeleton. The man even went as far as to grab the father's head with his skeleton hand to prove it was real. The boys of course got out of there as quickly as possible. In our number 9 spot today, we have the demon on the veranda story. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far, because it really helps us out. This story takes place in a small village in India when the storyteller was 16 years old and living in a boarding school. All the girls slept in a big hall, and one night one of the other girls, named Malty, woke her up around 1 a.m. as Malty wasn't feeling too well. She goes to get some water and went outside on the veranda with Malty to try and help her feel better as she was feeling very nauseous. She looked to the right and saw the far end of the veranda, and there was only one light, and the rest of the light was all coming from the moon. After a while of comforting Malty, she looked up to the right again and saw a kind of cat-like figure, but after a closer look, this cat had the head of a human and was bald with big eyes. She tried to convince herself that her eyes were deceiving her, but it began getting closer and she could see it more clearly. She was frozen with fear, and by the time this creature was around 10 meters away from her, it let out a meow sound that absolutely terrified her. She screamed, grabbed Malty, and got both of them back into the hall where everyone was still sleeping. This of course woke everyone up though, and the warden came over to see what all the commotion was about. She asked the warden not to make any loud sounds and begged her not to open the door. Everyone in the hallway looked outside and saw this shadowy creature moving before it just disappeared. To this day, she still isn't exactly sure what she saw, but she's glad she has never encountered it again. In our number 8 spot today, we have this sleep paralysis demon. This story comes from the Reddit user JStation666, and this is what they had to say about their demon encounter. I was laying in bed and fell asleep, and I woke up not being able to move or scream. I tried my best and it went on for about 5 minutes. It stopped, but after that I felt hands around my throat trying to choke me. I look up and all I see is a very tall black outline of a figure with flaming hair, and I could feel its long finger-like claws around my neck. The next morning I get up and there's red marks around my neck of what looks like very large hands. Sadly, I didn't take a picture when I should have, but after it's hard for me to get to sleep in a dark room. I feel like I would have thought this was just a scary case of sleep paralysis, but the waking up with hand marks around their throat truly is very scary and kind of unexplainable. I am glad that they made it through this frightening situation. In our number 7 spot today, we have this eye-changing demon. This story comes from the Reddit user Katzabar from a time when they were around 11 or 12 years old. He starts off with explaining that they moved apartments a lot growing up, and no matter where they went, entities would always find him, and he also tells us that he had bright blue eyes like his mother's, which will be important later. They moved into a new apartment and things immediately began to go poorly. He had a dream where he was in a bright white room and there was a beast on the ceiling that looked into his eyes and roared. The roar obviously frightened him and he woke up screaming, which of course woke up his mother, who rushed to his side. His mother was also very frightened, not only because she woke up to the sound of her son screaming, but because his scream did not sound like a little boy's, but was like the scream of a grown man. If this whole situation wasn't already strange enough, after this dream, his eyes turned from that bright blue color to a hazel color and have never changed back to blue. If that really is true, I have no idea how that happened, and that is honestly pretty crazy. In our number 6 spot today, we have this gray skin demon. This story comes from Pink Magic 724 on Reddit and is about a night they had a few years ago while still in college. Pink Magic's best friend of many years was in town, so they went out for a dinner to catch up and spend some time together. They, of course, end up getting a bit caught up, as best friends do, and before they know it, it is around 2 a.m. and definitely time for them to head home. Pink Magic's friend was the one who drove, so they headed off to Pink Magic's house. They're at an intersection waiting for the light to turn green when Pink Magic turns their head and looks out the window into the car next to them. This is when she sees the person next to them is looking directly at them, but they have gray skin, completely black eyes with no white, and they are smiling, but their teeth are long and sharp. Whoever or whatever this thing is, it will not break eye contact. Pink Magic tries to scream, but no sound will come out, and eventually the friend sees the creature too and immediately speeds out of there. To this day, neither of them like to talk about it, and neither of them are quite sure what exactly they witnessed. In our number 5 spot today, we have this demon in your mind. This story comes from Sylvie on Reddit and starts off a few years ago after an argument with a friend. This friend was really upset, so Sylvie went to bed, definitely not feeling great about what had just happened, and Sylvie's behavior that led to this argument. About halfway through the night, Sylvie thinks that they had a dream, but they can't for sure say because they remember it so clearly. Sylvie woke up and had a knife in their hand, and the room was illuminated by the moonlight. As they looked around the room, they saw on the wall some words that looked like they were written in blood. Sylvie looked around the room again when something caught her eye. There was some sort of creature in the dark corner of the room that looked like one of those deep sea fish with the scary eyes and the really sharp teeth. I think they're called anglerfish. As soon as Sylvie saw this creature, the moonlight in the room changed to a flashing orange light, and this is when Sylvie definitely woke up in a cold sweat. Sylvie chalked it up to just a really scary dream and went and got ready for school and went about their day, but they just could not shake this feeling. After the first period was over, Sylvie was feeling really anxious and they reached up to the cross necklace they were wearing when a voice spoke in their head. The voice said, "God won't save you." Sylvie said that they had a few more incidents with this demon, but after firmly telling it to leave and using their religion and faith as a guide and a protection, they have luckily been demon-free ever since. In our number 4 spot today, we have the demon in the basement. This story comes from the Reddit user DreamGuy72 and starts off in his first apartment in the summer of 1992 in Casper, Wyoming on none other than Elm Street. The apartment was a basement suite where Dreamguy and his boyfriend lived, and their friends occupied the main floor suite above them. One day, Dreamguy was home alone and was repainting the main bedroom when he decided to take a break. After he had a drink, he headed back into the main bedroom, but this is when all of his hairs stood up. He saw that there was something painted on the opposite wall from the one that he had been painting. His heart was absolutely pounding as he walked up to the writing, and this is where he saw that the paint was still wet and dripping down the wall. The paintbrush he had been using was exactly where he left it, and there wasn't any paint on the floor. The words just said, "I am here." He of course got out of there as quickly as possible, and when he told his boyfriend later, he just kind of dismissed it. A few months go by and Dreamguy and his boyfriend get home after a long day of both of them being out of the house all day. Dreamguy heads to the shower to get ready for bed, and as he's in the shower, he hears the bathroom door open and close. He of course just assumes it's his boyfriend, and he's rinsing the conditioner out of his hair when he asks his boyfriend if he is joining him in the shower, and that's when he hears the response, "Sounds good to me," but it is not his boyfriend's voice. He then feels ice-cold hands grab his shoulders and spin him around as he opens his eyes to see that no one else is there. He of course bolts it out of the bathroom, and he's now in the front room trying to catch his breath when he sees his boyfriend shaking, pointing to the bathroom, saying he saw it go in there. It's safe to say that Dream Guy didn't live there for much longer, and I am very glad he made it out of this apartment and lived to tell the tale. In our number 3 spot today, we have this lady ghost demon story. This story comes from the Reddit user 7-Leg Spider, and they really just dive in. Basically, for several years, Spider saw what they thought was just a lady ghost every night at the door of the closet. It happened for so long that Spider just got used to it and even started saying goodnight to her. Spider says she didn't look bad or rotten, she was just a lady with pale skin and dark hair. Anyway, after a few years of this, Spider finally tells a friend at school about the lady. This friend, of course, didn't believe the story right away, but the next day at school, he tells Spider that this lady tried to hurt him while he was sleeping. Now, Spider didn't believe the friend and thought he was just playing a prank. Some more time goes by and Spider decides to tell another friend about the lady, and the same thing happens where the next day she comes and tells Spider that the lady had tried to hurt her while she was sleeping. The first friend and the second friend didn't even know each other, so it's not like they could have been conspiring, which made Spider believe his first friend was telling the truth. Then, a while after that, Spider is on a video chat with a friend and they're talking about the paranormal when they both see something run across the screen. They chalk it up to just being a computer glitch, and Spider starts telling his friend about the lady, and then Spider begins to get extremely dizzy, like they're going to pass out. After it goes away, Spider tells their friend that they're okay, and the friend replies that they were out of it for at least a full minute, and that he could feel that someone was there trying to hurt Spider. I'm really glad that Spider and all the friends ended up being okay, and I really hope that they found a way to get rid of this lady demon. In our number 2 spot today, we have Zozo. This story comes from Reddit user Archaic Alchemy, who we'll call A. When A was 22, they were staying with their sister, and one night they had a couple of good friends over to hang out, and they decided to play around with a Ouija board, which is always the start of a good demon story. A had read about people encountering an entity called Zozo, and A really wanted some proof that things exist beyond our physical realm, so they wanted to use the Ouija board. Everyone places their hands on the planchette, and A calls out to Zozo. It took a few attempts before anything happened, but then the planchette began to move in figure eights. No matter what was asked, it just kept moving in figure eights until it finally spelled out M-A-M-A. That's us, we're MA. Maybe they were talking about our channel. A kept asking who they were talking to, and eventually they spelled out Zozo, and then things really escalated. The planchette was taken to the letters to spell out kill you, and when A asked who, Zozo spelled out one of the friends' names. They didn't take it seriously and kept asking more questions, and one friend made the mistake of insulting Zozo. The planchette begins frantically moving through the alphabet backwards over and over before it just stops. Then the energy in the room completely drops, and A knows that this means Zozo has manifested itself. Suddenly, A begins to laugh maniacally with no control over it. A could feel Zozo's presence inside and could feel Zozo turning all of this hatred and anger towards the friend that had been named before. A's emotions suddenly completely switch and they begin crying uncontrollably before again suddenly snapping back to anger. A's head turns involuntarily to look at the friend with a menacing grin as A pushes the planchette towards the friend. The friend decides it's rightfully time to leave, and shortly after they left, A felt like they regained control and Zozo's presence had disappeared. I'm so glad that nothing even crazier happened and that Zozo wasn't able to harm this friend. In our number 1 spot today, we have VELGROD. This story comes from the Reddit user Wheezy Donkey. Since he was a child, he's had interactions with a demon he knows as VELGROD. He first noticed the demon during the night as he was trying to fall asleep. It would continue saying his name quietly over and over again. This happened about once a month on a random night as he was trying to fall asleep, and he tried to ignore it, but every time it happened, the voice was a little louder because it was getting closer. One Friday night, he heard the voice and realized it was right at the end of his bed. He was frozen in fear, and every other night, if he waited long enough, the demon would just leave, but this time it wasn't happening. He found a lot of courage and lifted the blanket to inspect what he hoped was just his overactive imagination, but what he saw was too real for him to believe it was just imagination. This creature was tall and lanky with the yellow eyes of a reptile. His eyes were also bulging and very far apart. The creature apparently appeared as though he had been burned all over his body, as he had charred and blistered skin. When the creature opened its mouth, it revealed its long lizard-like tongue that descended to its chest. In his right hand, he had a cane he was using to keep himself from falling over, but the cane was covered in barbed wire. In his other hand, VELGROD was holding the Bible that was on the nightstand. When he held the Bible up into the air, it was immediately engulfed in flames that left nothing but ash. VELGROD kept eye contact the entire time as he used his foot to spread the ashes across the floor in a certain pattern, at the same time hissing menacingly. VELGROD then turned and began to walk away towards the door and down the stairs. Wheezy Donkey sat frozen with fear for a while before working up the courage to inspect the ash on the floor. When he finally did, he saw that the ash spelled out, "Hell is below you." Ooh, that was creepy. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thank you so much for checking it out. If you have a scary close demon encounter, please put it in the comments. I would love to read it. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys. After a while of confronting Malty. Malty's like gonna throw up when she's like, time to confront. After a while of stop skipping. That was confusing with the pronouns. I hope that I always assume a gender which is not right, and that's not good. So sometimes I like write in she and I'm like, well, I don't know, it's a she, who am I to say? So I hope that that wasn't confusing. Sorry if it was. Wheezy Donkey sat frozen with just adding Wheezy Donkey is so funny.